Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining this market live. We're looking at the US CPI preview, but we're also going to be discussing the massive amount of volatility in markets. Now I'm going to show you my screen. Brilliant. And I will just switch over what we're looking at, because right now we're looking at a consumer sentiment which has really fallen, which is a bit of a problem, but I wanted to show you this. Bear with me one moment. This shows you stock markets, global stock markets. So at the top band there are US stock markets. As you can see, that's yesterday's close because US stock markets haven't opened yet. The Nasdaq fell 4%, the S&P 500 was down 2.7%, and the Dow Jones was down just over 2%. Now, if you look down to Asia and to Europe, that shows you today's price action. So America's price action was yesterday's, but today's price action, a bit more stable. So there's a bit more stability in financial markets right now, particularly equity markets, but we're not seeing any big turnaround. Now, it's worth noting, if we just scoot around to the last two columns in this page, you can see the S&P 500 is down 7.4% so far over the last month. The Nasdaq is down 11%, so it's actually in correction territory. That's anything below 10% fall. Now, compare that to Europe, where it's a real sea of green in dollar-adjusted dollar-adjusted terms, or local currency terms, I should say. The Euro Stoxx is up 5%, the FTSE is up over 1.5%. Again, the DAX up over 8%. So real outperformance there compared to the US, and today is going to be a really interesting day. Now, if we just take a quick look at this chart here, this shows the VIX index. As you can see, the VIX has been shooting higher, so it reached the highest level of the year so far, pulled back a little bit today, but there's no major movements. Now, this here is the E-mini US futures chart. Now, I'm showing you a 10-day chart just to show you really that we are picking up, but from a very low base. So yes, markets are stabilizing, but we're not seeing any big turnaround. Now, we would point out today that we've got a business leaders summit. So Trump, all the business leaders, we don't know which, but they've all agreed to meet today in Washington. And there's going to be a few expectations from markets, I think, on the back of this. They're not meeting just to have a nice chat. They're likely meeting because business is worried about what's going on. So to placate markets and to see a real turnaround and a return of that bull market, we're going to need to see Trump roll back on some of his tariff policies and also maybe take steps to boost the stock market. Neither of those things we think are going to happen. We think that the US economy is definitely, the minute the recession word was announced, that's a really key driver of what's going on at the moment. I also want to show you a couple of things. This is Nvidia's price. Remember, yesterday's decline was really led by those big tech stocks, because when you've got recession on the cards and a really uncertain outlook, people aren't willing to take a risk on things like AI being the next big industrial production. They're really moving into healthcare and other defensive sectors. Now, as you can see, this is Nvidia. It's below its 200-day moving average. That is the yellow line in this chart. I want to show you the Nasdaq 100 index. That's 100 biggest tech companies in the US, also below its 100-day moving average, and the same for the S&P 500, below its 200-day moving average. There is a saying in financial markets that nothing good happens below the 200-day moving average. So that's a sign that momentum very much on the downside. We're not seeing a recovery yet. We're just seeing stabilization. We need to see what comes out of this meeting with the business leaders. If nothing comes out of it, there could be another leg lower for stocks. Now, what we're not seeing is any let up in that dollar weakness. So the dollar typically is safe haven, but it's certainly not catching a bid at the moment. This is the dollar against the major G10 FX currencies since last Monday, so for just over a week. And as you can see, the Norwegian, every currency has strengthened against the dollar in the last week and a bit. The euro is up by nearly 4%. The pound there is up by nearly 2%. So we really are seeing a shift. This is the euro dollar chart. So euro dollar has really had this exponential rise, and that's on the back of the few things. Firstly, it's on the back of better, brighter economic prospects compared to the US, where Germany is actually spending money to try and boost growth. The US is doing the absolute opposite, and that's really having a negative impact on the US dollar. Euro dollar up above 109. Now, it had been a bit higher earlier today, but it seems quite comfortable above that 109 level, which really opens the door to 110 and maybe beyond. Momentum very much on the downside for the dollar, on the upside for the euro and elsewhere too. Now, before before we go, I do want to just show you a little bit of a preview about what to expect for tomorrow's CPI report. If I just move this part of the chart up, as you can see, CPI data, the market is looking for a slight decline in CPI to 2.9% for the headline rate. For the the core rate, that's expected to fall to 3.2%. So expected a bit of a notch lower, but nothing, again, too major there. If we get something in line, we don't think that's going to be enough to boost Fed rate cut expectations and really drive stock markets higher or drive that recovery that some people are looking for in US stock markets. However, if we were to see an upside surprise, that could really spook markets again. So watch that. We will also think, because so much of what Trump is doing with tariffs and really upending the global economy and the US economy, that's really impacting consumer sentiment. So that means the University of Michigan consumer sentiment data is also going to be really, really critical for this Friday. So we've got some big economic releases. We've got the CPI, but we've also got the consumer sentiment data on Friday. Don't forget about that. Until then, we're going to be looking at where the dollar goes next. It's looking very weak at the moment. Will it continue to weaken? And also the outcome of this meeting with Trump and the business leaders. Will it lead to some positivity that can calm financial markets? We have low expectations, but we will wait and see. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you all soon.